We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast, where we are going to get into the Doge Report as we do every week. I have in studio with me Andy. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Good to see you, Julian.
So, what's been going on with Citizens Doge this week?
Well, it's been a pretty busy week. We had our
All right, we're just going to switch mics.
okay. Sorry about that. Well, to answer your question, we had a very busy week. We had a volunteer barbecue on Friday evening in Wilton, as I believe I mentioned in our last report, and we had a good crowd show up, about 25 people, and all loyalists who we are used to seeing at this point at all of our meetings, and cooked some food, networked for about an hour and a half after the festivities and the presentations and the speeches were done. We had two great speakers, one of whom was Davis Miller from Turning Point Action. He's the New Hampshire field rep, lives out in Stratford County, and the other was Brian Cole, who is a state rep from Manchester. I almost said Merrimack County. That's not right. I was thinking about David Loveland, who's a good friend of ours, who's from Merrimack County, who's the commissioner there. But yeah, we had a busy week in terms of appearances as well. Mike and I went to the Hollis GOP meeting on Tuesday evening after the show last week. Scott Brown, among others, had a speaking engagement there. That same night, we also had someone cover for us to go to the Sullivan County GOP meeting. I want to give a special shout out to Annette Menard, who is our Sullivan County lead up in the Connecticut River Valley there. She spoke for us at that meeting, and we had some good correspondence coming from the leadership of that committee soon afterwards, and so we want to thank Annette for that.
Nice.
And also at the barbecue, we announced an initiative that Mike and I had been doing some discussion about previous to the barbecue, as well as in previous weeks, which was a project called Doge Voices. Now, this template, to be perfectly fair, is not entirely novel. There was a program many people know about called Walkaway that started, founded by Brandon Straka, I believe, after the January 6th events in D.C. 4 years ago, of getting people to submit stories, video testimonials about how and why they left the Democratic Party and what was their breaking point.
2016.
Oh, it actually goes back to 2016.
Yeah.
Okay, I always pride myself on knowing timelines.
Yeah, because
that.
he did get locked up. So that was 2016, Trump's first run. Hillary Clinton was just absolutely dismal. So then and she, we can get into it later. But basically, she ran on the fact that she has a vagina. So because that's a qualification for office. It's, vote for me because I'm a woman. Vote for me because I'm black.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, identity politics all the way. But at any rate, Mike and I had a discussion about how to sort of engage people more in being able to not only share but spread their stories about things they're seeing going on in their local neighborhoods, their local towns, and have that maybe not necessarily be something that could go viral, but could be something that could create a connective tissue throughout New Hampshire and perhaps beyond New Hampshire if we grow our membership fast before the end of the summer. And so what we encourage people to do, if you're a member of Citizens Doge, we ask that you record yourself with your cell phone or with your laptop. If you go to a local town meeting, a town select board meeting, a school council meeting, if there's something that you see that isn't right, if there's something that you hear that isn't right, if there's a line item in the budget that you see is suspicious, or even especially if you get it taken out, as one of our members did earlier this year, as we've discussed, please post this to social media. We don't ask you to send it to us directly, but please post it to social media. Tag hashtag Doge Voices. Tag our at Citizens Doge USA if you're on X, and this can begin to spread our message and spread our sense of urgency about what's going on here in New Hampshire. As we've discussed many times in this show, there are so many things in all the towns, not just in this immediate area, Hillsborough County and Rockingham County, but all throughout the state, of examples where people are seeing things that don't look right, and that are throwing their town budgets and their towns underwater and worse. We want to start to make a record of these things. If we do it through this project, Doge Voices, we encourage people to get on that and start to spread it around.
And you know what this is, because I was reminded of this online, right? A couple of years back, my town, Derry, New Hampshire, had a beauty pageant that went viral nationally because they elected a fat trans chick as they gave her the award. And there were objectively cute, beautiful young women up there that could have actually been considered. But instead, it was this horrendously fat, ugly trans dude thing. And I'm sitting there going, and this is a red town. This is a red town where every state rep is a Republican. How did it happen in our town? Because people stopped paying attention.
Right.
People stopped paying attention. It should be very easy to simply sit up here and say, you're a guy. Irrespective of whether you want to be a woman or not, you're not a woman. You're not going to compete in a competition that is solely for young girls. You're sure as hell not going to take opportunities away from these young girls in the spaces that are for young girls. It's baffling. And this guy brings it up and he goes, wow, it was New Hampshire Journal had an article about posting the reddest, the best towns for conservatives to move into New Hampshire and live in. And I said Derry and Londonderry, two solid red towns, right? He's like, yeah, wasn't that the one that had the fat trans chick? He's like, yeah, solid pass. I go, dude, it's been Republican held for like 2 decades. Like it is a solid red area. Londonderry, Derry, friggin' Salem. Like these are areas that we're going to have a solid red ticket. We're not going to have to worry about losing a seat. But we lose on the shit that happens in the back end that we don't pay attention to.
Well, now I've got additional insight about why Londonderry's infamous town manager in 2023 and 24 had to flee. I'll tell you some stories about that off camera, but I know the individual, and they're quite a character.
There's a lot of real characters in New Hampshire politics. Yes. We ride this weird line of like, you have a lot of old school neocon Republicans that moved here from Massachusetts like 20 years ago, and they're like, Mitt Romney was my kind of guy. And it's like, yeah, nobody actually likes Mitt Romney. We kind of just tolerate him.
And it's so embarrassing. I've heard some of those people. It's so embarrassing when you come across them.
Yeah, it's like, man, I just love George Bush. I love John McCain. I'm like, you love the bomb Iran? I don't fucking believe it. So, and it's because it's like when people say that, I'm like, you could tell me you like their policies. All right, and we could have a debate about that, but that's fine. But when you say like, oh man, I love that person, I'm like, all right, in what realm of cult of personality does anybody go, God damn, fucking John McCain and Mitt Romney just get my engines going in the morning? I don't fucking believe it. But you have those guys that move down here. You have the libertarians. They've had the Free State Project for the past, going on 26 years now. And they've had a massive influence on shifting legislation towards liberty in the state. But they got a lot of weirdos. There's a lot of weirdos. There's a lot of weird people who like say crazy shit like, maybe we should get rid of the age of consent. How about fucking not? or maybe child labor isn't that bad. I'm like, or it is, and we should not be going backwards because you want to make an intellectually purist point so that you can be the guy that everybody in your neat little circle of autistic buddies cheers on.
And they fail to see.
And then you got the Democrats, you got the progressives.
Yeah.
What was it? Tim Horgan, the vagina hat wearing friggin' state rep. He's like 65-year-old white guy. Looks like that nutty professor with the weird haircut and the glasses in the tweed jacket and stuff, but he's got a vagina hat on. And he is just all in on women's rights, man, to abort your babies.
Yep.
But no other women's rights except aborting your babies. So, and then you got you actually do have some blue dog Democrats up here. They'll vote for a Republican like Sununu or a Republican like Kelly Ayotte because all they really want is like, look, dude, I just don't want taxes. And I'm fine with keeping my guns, but I don't like the MAGA people. And I don't like Trump, and I don't like all that. So though you have those this weird conglomerate of people that still pull the state towards liberty more often than not, which is fucking awesome.
And it's a few degrees right of center usually, and that's the tenuous line. I think that's very precarious because being from Massachusetts originally, I know that this in-migration from my state has been going on for a very long time. I could give specific examples, but it would take too long. But yeah, the situation in the state right now that Mike and I are seeing is that when we've gone around, and it's mostly in this area, but we have spread around when we could. For instance, a couple of weeks ago, we were in Laconia in Belknap County. Is that people understand there's a sense of urgency, but they don't really know what to do.
Yeah.
What we're essentially trying to do is give them a sense of urgency and some semblance of a framework of, well, here's some things you can do now,
Action.
and here's some things you can do with us that we're also willing to do with you. We're not just here to be, armchair, people standing up in front of a room saying, hey, why don't you go out and do this? We actually want to do this with people.
Yeah. The actionable steps people can take, because that's the problem, right? Is we all get online and we can all bitch about something, and we'll spend the weirdest thing is the amount of people who will tell you to your face, I don't have the time to go out and door knock or do phone calls or do all this stuff, or sine wave or write 91 A's to my school board or make phone calls and stuff like that, but they spend 3 hours a night bitching online. And I'm like, no, you have the time. You just would rather do it from the comfort of your armchair with your cell phone in your hand. That's just not productive, because the people who are passing legislation honestly don't give a fuck about what you say online. Unless you're some major, huge influencer that has the ability to actually sway people's votes or sentiments towards one thing or another. And this is something that happens on both sides of the aisle, right? Is you have this group of people who you wish were more engaged, like physically engaged, who aren't. And if we can figure out a way to activate those people through every single election cycle, so that it's not just high turnout during the presidential year and low turnout during the off-year elections or the state elections or the local elections. If we can figure out how to tap those people who care or who bitch and whine and get them to care outside of just the presidential election cycle, we can really make change throughout the country. So which means our first step needs to be what you guys are doing, activating people, educating people, and then giving them actionable steps of what they can do and how they can be effective.
Yeah, this is certainly what we're trying to do. And my personal belief is that we'll know by this time next year which way the midterms are going to go. And if the midterms are swinging in a way that you and I both hope that we can avoid, but if the clouds look ominous at this time next year, my personal prediction is New Hampshire and a lot of other states that will be at issue in the 2028 election cycle will be at risk of losing their red majorities, and we obviously don't want to see that happen.
Yeah, which brings us to, you know what? I'm a big fan of, calling out the people who wear the jersey on your own team, right? We're on the same team. I have to be honest about the fact when you're doing something that's counterproductive, right? But there needs to be some sort of boundaries where you don't go personal, because what I'm seeing online is the personal attacks of people. I can disagree with Kelly Ayotte on her women's spaces, not vetoing that bill. I can disagree with her on that. And I can agree with her on passing other bills, like the getting rid of the mask mandates and shit. I can, and I don't have to judge her as a person. Just because that's your niche issue that you make your entire personality around does not mean that is everybody else's niche issue. The vast majority of voters in the state care about their wallet, their kitchen table, what's in their gas tank, what's coming over the border, whether they're going to be able to show up to work tomorrow, and whether they're going to be able to crack open a 6-pack of beer at the end of the week and enjoy their time off, and hopefully retire one day without passing down, and pass down something to their kids other than debt. Yeah. That's what the vast majority of people in the country care about. And once Republicans figure that shit out and run on this shit people care about, we win, which means our focus on everything needs to be transparency, accountability, efficiency, and efficacy.
And making the best of alternatives, because, next year, I don't know, neither of us knows who the Democrats' gubernatorial choice is going to be, but it figures to be somebody about as radical as Joyce Craig was, if not further left. So it's going to be a question of alternatives again, and this issue right now going on with the veto that Governor Ayotte just put in on the men and women's spaces issue is it's going to linger for a while, but this time next year it's going to be a question of alternatives again, and we think that the progressive alternative is just one we can't take.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with people. There is not a single person in this state who can honestly convince me that I should sit at home and not vote, or that I should vote for a Democrat or somebody who can't actually win an election just to flip the finger to Kelly Ayotte when the alternative is worse. Now, I would rather get into a position where there are enough of people like you and me where if we wanted to come to Kelly Ayotte and be like, hey, you need to stand strong on this, and this, and here's a whole conglomerate of votes that are going to come with you agreeing to do this, and this, then you have the ability to affect change and change policy and change how she runs the administration in the next term, which is what we should be doing. But the whole oh man, I can't vote for that person because this is my one issue. I'm like, single issue voters aggravate the shit out of me because, and normally, what are the two that typically pop up, right? Guns and
reproductive
abortion.
rights. Yeah.
Single issue voters piss me off, and the reason why is I'm like, oh, so you can't ban that chick getting an abortion, so you're gonna vote against them. And vote for you're going to vote against the Republican and vote for either the Libertarian, who's also pro-choice, or the Democrat, who's also pro-choice, or you're not going to vote so that the Democrat or the Libertarian, who are both pro-choice, win over the moderately pro-life Republican. And I'm sitting here going, how does that make any sense? Because if those two win, any moderately pro-life legislation we have is going to come off the books as soon as possible. If we lose the majority, it comes off the books. So any lives that were being saved aren't being saved now. So this is the issue of strategy. Do you want to stand up and wave your sword in the air and die on your hill and say, I died the righteous fight? Or do you want to win the long-term war and save as many lives as possible? Because I don't believe wars are fought by guys who stand up and go, charge! Yeah. They're not won by those guys. They're won by tacticians who understand what to use your troops for, when to use them, how to use them.
Exactly right. And looking long time horizon, but also understanding the mindset of the left. This is one of the things I know that you are very passionate about as well as I am. Mm-hmm. That even as somebody who is I still consider myself fairly newly minted as a self-identifying conservative. The last 5-6 years especially, mostly for personal reasons more than political ones, but as things have happened in my life and I've seen people I know and just seen things going on in the world move in ways or speak in ways that alarmed me or bothered me, I began to go, what is really behind all of these ideas that I was so, ensconced in as a younger guy? And what presumptions about the world and about human beings are like within this stuff that's coming out now and is making this political climate so poisonous. And once I really began to understand it and understand certain people that I had known in my life who were like seriously on the left and you could never brook compromise with them.
Oh yeah.
I was just like, oh wow, no wonder I'm a conservative now. Like I can't relate to these people at all anymore. I just can't relate to the way they see things.
It's gotten to the point where if you're on the left and you try to engage with your old friends on the left, you're Hitler. Mm-hmm. You're Mecha Hitler, and you're out there exterminating Jews and trans people or some shit like that. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck what you do inside your house. I don't give a fuck what you do in your personal time. I don't give a fuck who you marry, what you wear, what you smoke, what you eat, how you dress. I just don't care. Just don't talk to my kids about it. Don't ask me to pay for it. Don't try to shove it down my throat and force agreement to it. That's it. Don't weaponize government.
Yep.
That's where I land. That's where libertarians should stay. Don't weaponize the government. Let's get out of stuff and let's stick to the issues the vast majority of Americans care about. So up next, we are going to have a guest on, and we're going to get into some wild shit, right? We're going to get into how slavery is weaponized to get this Marxist proletariat revolution. Talked about it many, many, many times. We'll see you after the break. Next. United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Aciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Aciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, And if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Welcome back to Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. As I said, we have in the studio with me Andy from Citizens Doge, and up next we have Wanjira Njoya, a scholar in residence for the Mises Institute. I always say it wrong. I've been doing this for a long time. I should get it right by now. A nonprofit organization that exists to promote the teaching and research of Austrian school economics, individual freedom, honest history, and international peace in the tradition of Ludwig von Mises and Murray Rothbard. So, thank you for coming on. I'm sorry we had a delay and we ended up being late. The producer said he had some technical difficulties.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So how are you doing today? Tell me what you think about you said you have a racing history to advance the socialist revolution. What's your perspective?
So that was about the debates about history. They say the debates are about history, but they're really about politics and about what people think the priorities in politics should be now, especially around issues of civil rights and what they call racial justice. So one of the points I make is that even though they say it's about what statues should we have showing and which statues should be taken down, my argument is that it's really a proxy for today's politics, because if you think about it, nobody really cares that much about what happened in 1860. You know, they'll say this is somebody that was there in 1865 and, you know, these are the things he said. Really, when they debate, for example, about the names of schools, do you really think children today going to school are concerned about whether the name of the school is about somebody who was there in the 19th century? I don't think so. I think it's a way for the Democrats to push what they call their social justice agendas, and the history wars are just another platform for them to do that.
I have often said, and I will maintain it, systemic racism is Marxism, cross-dressing is progressivism. And it is highly focused in the areas where there is no cultural, ideological, or political machine to combat it. And once they perfect their death, poverty, and destruction, they export it to the rest of the world through popular culture and the education system. All of these arguments regarding race, gender, religion, now gender identity, because apparently we don't know that, you know, if you're born with a twig and giggleberries, that you're a guy. All of this is it's a way to, it's being used in lieu of class warfare, right? In order to create this oppressor narrative so that they can get their proletariat revolution. By convincing people that the rungs on the ladder to success are hidden, you convince them to stop climbing it, so the only thing they'll do is try to climb or tear down the ladder or anybody that's climbed it before them.
That's absolutely right. And it comes from Marxist theory. That's the class conflict that you mentioned. And it's gone through a few iterations. So they went from saying the oppressor oppressed matrices between the ruling class and the working class. And then that went through the sort of Frankfurt School of Marxism, where they said it's not just about class, but it's about, other groups that are oppressing others in society. And then critical race theory picked that up, and they
Yeah.
said, you classify one race as the oppressor race, you classify the other race as the oppressed race, and then you have to see everything through the prism of race. So one of the points that I've been making in my writing is that this is very collectivist thinking. So
Yes.
you decide the white race is the oppressor race, the black race is the oppressed race, and then if you want to know what anybody's opinions are, all you need to do is check what race they are, and suddenly that's supposed to tell you all their opinions and all their politics. It's absolutely poisonous. And worse of all, they're teaching this to children. They're teaching children that some of you belong to the oppressor race, and others of you belong to the oppressed race. And that's why they need the history wars. It's because they can use history to justify their current ideology. And why does it matter so much to them? It's because they have the solutions that they propose, saying, in order to fix this, you need to allocate money in the following ways that are coincidentally very advantageous to myself. That's what the race hustlers are all about. It's all about what they can get out of it.
I've often said that the reason why these, particularly when it comes to the black community, because obviously we have the history of slavery, Jim Crow, everything leading up to the 1960s and even to today. The reason why this issue persists is because, one, I'm in the middle of writing a book about what would have happened to the black community had Malcolm X and Dr. King not been killed, had their voices still lasted long, because both were a fan of calling out our own, and both focused heavily on morality, both focused heavily on individual responsibility and on families. But one of the things that I see as a common thread is that they're all movements. It starts as a movement, then it becomes a cause, then it becomes a business, and it devolves to a racket. And we've seen this with everything. So, like, a good example of feminism, for example, would be first wave feminism is equal rights. Second wave feminism is normalization of those rights and acceptance of those rights. Third wave feminism would be militancy, and fourth wave would be regression, where your positions today end up arguing against everything you succeeded in getting in the past by undoing the very system you created that got you the equality you needed. So, and you see this with the racial movements on the left, but there is a group of hyper-racialized thinking grifters on both sides of the aisle who take antagonistic positions against each other because they spend more time arguing with each other than talking to normal people about normal issues that the vast majority of people in the country care about. And the rest of us are sitting here going, I don't know how we got here. Why are we arguing about this? The vast majority of people in our daily lives, we walk down the streets, we interact with each other just fine, with no racial animus, no issues whatsoever. But there is an entire class of people who exist to keep the problems of the black community first and foremost in front of the black community, whether it be Hollywood making another movie about a black guy getting his ass kicked for 2 hours, like 12 Years a Slave, or the music industry propping up the lowest 1% demographic in the black community as what should be considered authentic black culture, which is absolutely retarded. And then you have the political influencer class on the right. It's black people bad. On the left, it's black people are incapable of success or doing thing without our white liberal help. And I find this because they're so often, this guy's trying to dismantle this person's talking points and vice versa. We never actually talk about solutions. We never actually talk about how the fastest way to get to liberty is transparency, accountability, efficiency, and efficacy. And if you apply those 4 principles to everything, you can get back to the Constitution.
It's, I think that the problem is that many of the solutions to these problems are not interesting to the race hustlers. So if you take the question of the family, stable families, supporting children at school. I mean, supporting children at school is not very interesting.
Hmm.
It's very mundane things like making sure they get to bed on time, making sure they do their homework, reading to them. These things are not interesting to race hustlers. You aren't going to get much of a political platform
Hmm.
of things like this. That's why it's not interesting to them. When they say things like the topic that we started out discussing, when they say things like, we need to get this statue down,
Yeah,
we need to get there with our bulldozer and, crush it. It's these things that seem exciting to them.
of
Arguing for
course.
money to be allocated to schools, well, that's very exciting because often we're talking about huge sums of money. So
Yes.
that's very exciting to them. Talking about literacy rates and numeracy rates, that's not so exciting. They're not interested in that. This is the
No.
problem.
Yes, I completely agree. We've gotten past the ability to have reasonable discussions about things that actually matter, because it's
Yeah.
just not flashy. It doesn't get clicks, likes, shares, retweets, or subscribers. And unfortunately, the vast majority of voices in politics these days on both sides of the aisle do what they do for clicks, likes, retweets, and shares and subscribership. So, where do you think we fix this? How do you think we can fix this going forward, and we can actually start? How do you educate people as to really what's going on past all the griftery?
I see the solution being in a return to people being less reliant on leaders and less reliant on politics and less reliant on the federal government. Because the
Agreed.
federal government is never going to come into your home and read bedtime stories to your children.
Hmm.
So I think that it's about people taking power back to families and taking power back to communities and taking power back to the local level. I think it's at the local level where people are able to make the best strides, the biggest changes. So I think, for example, school board elections are much more important than, the presidential campaign.
Yeah.
It's just bringing things down to the local level and getting people involved at the local level and not just only interested in Republican Party politics, Democratic Party politics, but being interested in who's deciding policy for your local school, who's bringing in measures that are actually going to affect how you live your life from day
Hmm.
to day, your local politicians. I think this is where the real power lies. I think people get too overexcited about national politics. What's President Trump doing today? This is everyone's eyes following him from one escapade to another. And I don't think that's the most important issue when it comes to changing lives on the ground.
I completely agree. I think the social media is going to be the death of American society, because the average person is spending more and more hours. It increases every year, and we're starting to see studies come out right now that are showing that people are spending so much time online that it's warping their perception of the reality they live in daily. So now they're walking around with depression, anxiety, viewing the world through this hyper racialized, hyper sexualized, hyper antagonistic lens, and that leads you to view everybody as a combatant or a potential combatant. It's akin to being to the fog of war, thinking that you're constantly got to be at battle, and the vast majority of normal people who don't live online don't think like that, and can be effective in their local government if they drop the Twitter machines in our hands and get activated, where we can actually stop critical theory or critical pedagogy being taught in our schools, and a lot of this trans nonsense.
Something like critical race theory, when you look at it, it's so nonsensical.
Hmm.
I've never met a person in real life who follows those theories. I've never met a person in real life who says they don't know what a woman is.
Yeah.
So it's a good illustration of that. And yet, on the public space, everyone's debating these theories. Everyone's, saying define Marxism, define critical race theory.
If
Well,
no, I think you're right. I completely agree. I think if you ask the average person what a Marxist is, they wouldn't be able to tell you.
yeah, and it doesn't really matter because I think here's a good example of this kind of debate. So one of the articles that I've written about is the meaning of self-defense. And I look at a lot of arguments about what's reasonable, case law about what's reasonable, what is the meaning of self-defense. That's great, but let's face it, if somebody invades your home in the night, you aren't going to say, "Oh, where's my book about self-defense that I need to study to tell me whether this is what should I do next? How many seconds should I wait before I this is nothing to do with how people ordinarily live their lives. And I think that a lot of many of the problems that we're seeing in society could be fixed if we weren't so highly regulated by rules that are supposed to be telling us what we should be doing when common sense answers most of our questions.
I completely agree. I think one of the biggest failures in American politics is the vast majority of people within the DC Beltway industry, that whole industrial system, do not think like normal people. So they think, and they view the average person with this level of disdain, like abject disdain. You're those dirty, smelly Walmart people. And that because they view the average person with disdain, and this is regardless of color. I've found the exact same attitude on both sides of the aisle between, the same people. They go to the same schools, the same cocktail parties, the same institutes, the same the same organizations and stuff. They bounce around from, congressman to congressman, senator to senator on either side of the aisle. It doesn't matter. But this self-propagating industry here has such a low opinion of the American populace. It's like, no, we have to regulate everything that you do, everything that you say, everything that you eat, everything you smoke, you wear, every person you interact with. And the vast majority of people are sitting here going, well, one, screw you, because you're not going to tell me what to do. And also, who the hell are you to tell me that you know more about my life than I do?
I mean, it's incredible. For example, look at some of the communists that we're seeing now coming into power, like like the mayor of New York, and I think the mayor of Minneapolis coming in. I think everybody knows that communism doesn't work. You don't even need to have studied a great deal to know that it makes no sense to say that the state should own and regulate everything. It's usually the greatest danger at the moment is from regulation rather than even state ownership, although the mayor of New York was saying that the state will own the grocery stores so everybody can afford to buy groceries. I think most people would know that that makes no sense. And they vote for people despite the fact they can see the policies make no sense.
It's because emotions run the day. But I want everyone to follow you. Wanjiro Najoya. Again, she works at the Mises Institute. Go follow her. Erasing History to Advance Socialist Revolution. Political Moralizing about History of Slavery, Methodological Individualism, and Historical Analysis. Where can people follow you online and support your work?
So anyone who wants to read my articles can find them at mises.org. That's mises.org/Njoya, Njoya. And that's where you can find all the articles that you just listed. And just basically a comment on how concepts of liberty, individual liberty, should be informing all the political disputes that we see around us all the time. And one of the themes that I like to stress in all my writing is just the point we've been making, is to trust common sense and trust the principles that we all know about the importance of private property and individual liberty and voluntary exchange.
Agreed. I'd like to have you come back on in the future. I want to thank you for coming on. I've definitely enjoyed the discussion. It's nice to get to talk about something that's right in my wheelhouse.
Thank you so much. It's great to be on your show. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. So we're going to have a short break, and then we got the next segment coming up. You know, it's been a long day. It's been a very, very long day. I'm like, woosah. All right. See you in a few. United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Aciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Aciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
All right. Welcome back to the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. Again, you can find us online at Ram TV Live. Go check the past episodes. You can follow our clips. We're on TikTok, Instagram, everything else. Follow Ram TV Live on all social media platforms. We will be on Rumble and all that other stuff, and Spotify, iHeartRadio, all that. But so the big news right now: Trump accused Obama of treason. And everyone's going, oh my God, he's calling for the death of a U.S. president because treason comes with a death sentence and stuff. I was like, and one of you tried to take an actual shot at the head of the president of the United States. So kiss my ass. But on the flip side, we got to stop with the griftery, right? Everyone's going, oh my God, Obama's going to jail. Obama's going to jail. No, Obama's not going to jail. The elites protect themselves. All right, come on, let's be realistic. Can Trump try to do what Biden did to Trump? Yeah, he can. But I'm just throwing this out there. Haven't seen it happen yet. We're supposed to get Hillary Clinton locked up. Didn't happen. Supposed to get the Epstein files. Didn't happen. Supposed to get the MLK files and JFK files. Didn't happen. I'm starting to see a whole bunch of stuff that would have involved holding elites accountable, and I'm not seeing it happen. We were supposed to get rid of the FBI and CIA, right? It's still there. Because for some reason, Republicans think that we can weaponize and fix and run these organizations that are 99% leftists, populated. We think we can run them better than the left. I don't get it. Are we smoking crack? What crack are you smoking? Obama is not going to jail. I'm saying it right now. He's never going to be put in a yellow suit, a yellow jumpsuit. He's never going to be perp walked. Hell, we'll be lucky if he gets a smack on the hand. Oh, woosah. Well, you know what? I thoroughly enjoy doing this show, and I enjoy having Andy and Mike from Citizens Doge in, and I enjoy having great guests come on so we can talk about shit that actually matters rather than going over the constant griftery of everyone who is currently, there's about 30 spaces run by people with millions of followers online talking about something that's never going to happen. So everybody can chime in and give their little 2 cents about stuff they don't know about to make themselves feel special. Because you know what? It's easier to pontificate online about an elite getting accountability, which never happens, than it is to get active in your local government. Go to your school board meetings, go to your zoning board meetings, go to your town council, your city council, and be there to stop your property taxes from going up, to stop that person from shoving transgender theory or Marxist theory or critical race theory or whatever theory down your child's throat. Like, we can't agree. Oh, my Lord. Can we have a come to Jesus moment? Can we have a come to Jesus moment where everybody realizes you can be more effective on the ground in your local community than you can with the damn Twitter machine in your hand? It does not equate to you being a national activist. The vast majority of you people are the equivalent of the National Guard. You should be fortifying your communities against the next storm or natural disaster that happens to walk across the podium with purple hair and a vagina hat. Okay? That's what you should be fortifying your community against, the next Maggie Goodlander or the next Chris Pappas or the next whatever. Okay, the next Marjorie, what's her name, Jasmine Crockett, or the next AOC or Mamdani, or what is the dude that looks like the villain from Captain Phillips in Minnesota that just became mayor?
Oh, Jacob Fry.
Jacob Fry, yeah, that guy. We should be fortifying our communities against these socialists who seek to take them over instead of waving the banner for some fantasy land where all of a sudden the people who pull the strings in the world get their comeuppance. It doesn't happen. No. I'm sorry. I would like to tell you that it's going to happen, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. Okay? Now, can we focus on stuff that actually matters? All right. Well, that's my rant for the end of the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. You heard it here first. I don't believe it. I don't believe any of it. I think it's all a whole pile of crap that they're selling us to keep us distracted from the stuff that is really happening that we can actually have influence in. If you get active in your local community, you can legitimately change the tides of the entire nation. If Republicans can figure out how to if conservatives, real conservatives and normal critical thinking adults can figure out how to get the vast majority of these critical thinking people out, not just in a presidential election, but in your local, state, and off-year elections too, we can actually take this country back and get rid of the extremes on both sides of the aisle who constantly have us embroiled in all of these stupid arguments about crap that doesn't matter. So, next week, tune in. We're going to have another fiery episode where I'm going to chew out the entire world for doing dumb stuff. All right? Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. Back at you. Love you guys. Have a good week. United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Aciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Aciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.